I am Hannah Cole. And if you'd met me a few years ago, you probably wouldn't have noticed me in a room. I was one of those people who made things quietly work. The one who remembered birthdays, filled out the forms, sent the reminders, and paid for what everyone else forgot. I wasn't flashy or loud or the kind of woman who needed recognition. I thought being dependable was enough. I thought love would naturally grow from that. My family isn't large, but we're close enough that our lives always overlapped. My parents, my younger brother, my cousin Emily, her husband, and their kids. We grew up around the same dinner tables, sharing stories, lending money, and pretending we were all equals. But in truth, there was always a silent understanding. If someone needed help, they came to me. Hannah would fix it. Hannah would figure it out. It started innocently. My dad lost his job when I was 24. I was already working in accounting, earning my first real paycheck. I covered their electricity bill that month, just until he got back on his feet. Then it was another month, then their insurance, then groceries. By the time he found another job, I'd already built a habit of making sure everyone was financially okay. It made me feel useful, needed. And that feeling, being needed, can become addictive, especially when you've built your identity around it. I never said no when someone asked for help. My brother called one night saying his car payment bounced. I covered it. My cousin Emily needed help with daycare while she finished nursing school. I covered that too. My mother quietly hinted about her credit card balance. I paid it down without a word. I told myself I was just helping family, the same way they'd help me if I ever needed it. But deep down, I knew I never really asked for anything. Years went by like that. My career grew, and so did their dependency. I was the one setting up online accounts, managing auto pays, linking cards. I did it because I was efficient, and it was easier than watching them struggle. When my brother's electricity bill came in late, I just linked his utility account to my auto pay. When Emily's husband forgot to renew the car insurance, I quietly paid and told her to handle it next time. She thanked me, but her voice always carried a tone, not of gratitude, but expectation. At family gatherings, everyone treated me like the responsible one. They'd laugh and say things like, "Oh, Hannah's the smart one with spreadsheets," or "She probably has every password memorized." It sounded like praise, but it was really just a way of excusing themselves from ever trying. I didn't notice at first how heavy it felt. I was proud of being the one who could be relied upon. But it's strange how people can start taking kindness as an obligation. They don't even realize when they stop saying thank you. They don't even see you as a person anymore, just as the function you serve. The shift was gradual. Small things. When I'd suggest we split a bill at dinner, there'd be awkward silence until I sighed and covered it. When Emily's kids had birthdays, I was expected to show up with expensive gifts. If I didn't, there'd be subtle comments. "Oh, you're the one who's doing well, right? You can afford it." I began to realize that no one really knew me. Not what I liked or what I dreamed about. I was their convenience, an invisible safety net stretched underneath their lives. I remember one evening sitting at my desk, updating my own budget sheet. I had tabs for everything: mortgage, savings, travel, emergency funds. But in between, there was a tab called Family Expenses. That tab had grown bigger than any other. Each name was listed with dates and amounts: $120 for my parents' medication, $200 for my brother's car insurance, $75 for Emily's internet bill, $50 here, $40 there. In 1 year, it added up to more than $12,000. I stared at that number for a long time. Not because I regretted helping, but because I realized none of them even knew that figure existed. They never asked what it cost me, not just financially but emotionally. The small sacrifices pile up. The vacations skipped, the hobbies postponed, the quiet resentment that builds like dust in corners no one cleans. One day, my mom called me with that cheerful tone she used when she wanted something. "Honey, your dad's prescription isn't covered again. Can you just handle it this month?" I said yes before thinking, like I always did. But as soon as I hung up, I sat in silence. There was something different about that moment. I felt a kind of tiredness that didn't come from work or stress. It came from being invisible in plain sight. I think that was the beginning, the quiet seed of change. Still, I didn't act on it then. I was too used to my role, the dependable daughter, The problem solver. The quiet provider. It's a role that looks noble from the outside, but feels like slow erasure from within. Then came Thanksgiving, the year everything changed. But before I tell you about that, you need to understand something about Emily. She and I grew up almost like sisters. She was only a year younger, and we shared everything as kids: secrets, clothes, late-night talks about the future. But adulthood revealed the cracks between us. Emily had a way of turning vulnerability into manipulation. She'd cry easily, charm people into pitying her, and then quietly make them feel guilty for saying no. She wasn't malicious, just entitled in that innocent, unexamined way some people are. She married young, had 2 kids, and fell into financial hardship early. I helped, of course. Paid for their first apartment deposit, covered childcare for a few months, even bought groceries when her husband was laid off. I thought I was helping family through a rough patch, but that rough patch became a lifestyle. Every time I tried to pull back, she'd call with another story. Her voice always trembled just enough to trigger my empathy. "I just don't know how we'll manage this month, Hannah," she'd say. "I hate asking you, but..." And I'd give in, again and again. I told myself I was strong enough to handle it, that I could absorb their chaos without breaking. But I was wrong. There's a quiet breaking point that doesn't make noise. It just changes the way you breathe. I began to dread phone calls from family. Each ring carried an invisible price tag. I stopped picking up sometimes, only to get guilt-tripped later. "We thought you were busy being important, huh?" Still I smiled, brushed it off, and kept paying. It's strange how guilt can keep people obedient even when they're being taken advantage of. Then one autumn evening, about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I was at work when I received a text from Emily. It said, "We're planning Thanksgiving at Mom's this year. Everyone's coming. Can you bring dessert and the extra chairs again?" I replied, "Sure, I'll pick them up this weekend." Simple, right? Except later that night, my mom called me, her voice hesitant. "Honey, about Thanksgiving. Maybe it's best if you don't come this year until things cool off." I blinked. "Cool off? What do you mean?" "Well," she said, "you know, after what happened with Emily, she's still upset. She feels you owe her an apology." I sat there stunned. An apology? For what? Apparently a week earlier, Emily had been telling everyone that I embarrassed her. The story was twisted. Something about me mentioning at dinner that I'd helped her with bills again. She said I made her feel small in front of others. I hadn't said it to shame her. It was a casual remark during a conversation about budgeting. But she'd spun it into an act of cruelty. And now, my family had decided I should apologize. My father's voice joined the call then, calm but firm. "We just think it would be better for everyone if you said sorry. You know how sensitive she is." "So," I said slowly, "I'm banned from Thanksgiving until I apologize to Emily?" There was a pause. Then my mother said softly, "We just want peace in the family." That's how it was framed. Not as punishment, but as preservation of harmony. But that moment was the quiet breaking point I never saw coming. After the call ended, I sat at my kitchen table, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. And I thought about every bill, every late-night favor, every quiet rescue I had performed for them over the years. The groceries, the car repairs, the birthday gifts, the loans that were never repaid. And now, I was the one who needed to make peace. I remember whispering to myself, "They really don't see me at all." That night, I opened my budget binder. The one where every expense was carefully logged. I flipped through the pages, tracing the dates and numbers like a history of quiet servitude. There it was, 10 years of invisible generosity, 10 years of being their safety net. And as I looked at those pages, I felt something in me settle. Not anger, but clarity. For the first time, I saw the truth of what I'd built, a system where my silence was the currency they thrived on. And I decided, calmly and deliberately, that it was time to stop funding my own erasure. When the call ended that night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even text anyone. I just sat there, my phone still face up on the table, the words, "until you apologize," echoing in my head. There's a kind of silence that comes when you've finally been pushed past disappointment, when you stop hoping that people will do the right thing. It isn't sadness, it's peace, the kind that feels almost frightening because it's so still. That's what I felt. I stood up, walked to the shelf where I kept my binder, and pulled it down. It was heavier than I remembered. A plain black binder, thick with receipts, notes, printouts of emails, and online transfers. It wasn't meant for revenge when I started it. It was just my way of keeping track of my finances. But as I flipped through the pages that night, I realized it told a story far more powerful than I'd ever written in words. Each page was a timestamp of quiet sacrifice. January 2018. Transfer to mom. $340. Medication and bills. March 2018. Emily. Rent shortfall. $800. August 2019. Brian, my brother. Car insurance. $250. November 2019. Emily, Christmas gifts for the kids. $300. And it went on, page after page, year after year. I ran my finger down the columns, whispering the numbers like confessions. Every line was a choice I'd made to help, to hold things together, to buy peace. And now, they were using that peace against me. I remember thinking, if they ever saw this binder, they'd finally understand. Not just the money, but the pattern, the imbalance. But of course, they'd never asked to see it. I closed the binder and sat for a long time. The apartment felt different that night. It was like I'd stepped outside a long dream and realized how tired I was of being generous in the dark. By midnight, I opened my laptop. I started logging into accounts, utilities, subscriptions, autopays. My hands moved with calm precision, no anger in them, just clarity. Each click was a small act of reclaiming myself. I began with my brother's internet account. Years ago, when he'd moved out, I'd set it up under my name to help him get started. He never transferred it. The bill had been on my autopay ever since. I scrolled down, clicked Cancel Autopay, and then Remove Payment Method. The system asked, "Are you sure?" Yes, I was sure. Then I moved to my cousin's insurance plan. Years back, when Emily's husband lost his job, I'd added their family to my bundled insurance plan temporarily. Somehow, temporary had stretched to 3 years. I checked the renewal date, 2 weeks away. I sent an email to the provider requesting removal of the secondary account. Next came my parents' medication delivery. That one was harder. My father's prescriptions were expensive, and I knew it would hit them the hardest. But the difference now was that I wasn't doing this out of cruelty. I was doing it out of respect, for myself and, honestly, for them too. Because if I kept enabling them, they'd never learn how to stand on their own again. That night, I didn't finish everything. I only did a few accounts, enough to sleep with a strange kind of calm. For the first time in years, my mind didn't spin with guilt before bed. I didn't rehearse imaginary arguments or wish for understanding. I just slept. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Sunlight spilled across my kitchen table where the binder still sat open. I made coffee, sat down, and began again, this time, methodically. I created a list on a yellow notepad titled Family Dependents. Under it, I listed every recurring payment that involved them. Mom and dad, utilities, medication plan, cell phones. Brian, car insurance, Netflix account, internet. Emily, car insurance, grocery delivery, kids' daycare fund. When I totaled the monthly cost, it came to almost $1,200 every month. $1,200 that quietly disappeared from my account like background noise. I stared at the number and smiled, Not bitterly, but softly, almost amused. No wonder my savings weren't growing the way they should have. Around noon, Emily texted me. "Hey, just checking if you're still bringing the dessert for Thanksgiving. I heard Mom talk to you?" I didn't reply. I looked at the message, then flipped the binder shut. It was time to start phase 2, untangling the web of convenience I'd built around them. First, I went to the bank. The teller recognized me. I was there often, always handling someone else's transfer. I sat down and asked to update my accounts, close a few joint cards, remove authorized users. It took almost an hour. The teller looked slightly uncomfortable as she printed out forms for my brother's name, Emily's linked card, and my parents' shared account access. When I signed the papers, I felt lighter. Each signature felt like breathing fresh air after being underground for too long. That evening, I began writing letters. Not emotional ones. Factual, simple, direct. One for each of them. For my parents, I wrote, "I've realized I've been managing many of your financial matters for a long time. I'm stepping back from that role now. Starting December, I'll no longer be handling bill payments or prescription coverage. I'll send you a list of what needs to be updated under your own accounts. I love you both, but I need to focus on my own stability." For Brian, I wrote, "I'm taking my name off your car insurance. The next renewal will be your responsibility. You're capable, and it's time you manage this on your own." And for Emily, the one that mattered most, "I've realized I've been supporting your household financially for years. It was always done out of care, but it has become a pattern that's unhealthy for both of us. I'll no longer be covering your expenses or keeping your accounts under mine. This isn't punishment. It's a boundary." I placed each letter in an envelope, sealed them, and left them on the counter. I wasn't sure when I'd deliver them. Maybe after Thanksgiving, maybe sooner. The next few days were quiet. Work was normal. Life went on. But underneath it, there was this steady current of control returning to me. I checked my accounts daily. No new transactions, no surprise withdrawals. My balance began to look like my own again. But the calm didn't last long. By Friday, my mother called. "Honey," she began cautiously, "the pharmacy says the card isn't going through. Did you change something?" "I did," I said evenly. "I transferred the account back to your name." "Oh," she said after a pause. "Why would you do that? You know your father's not good with online stuff." "I know," I said. "But he can learn. I'll walk him through it if he needs help." Her voice tightened. "You don't have to make things so hard, Hannah. You've always been the responsible one." "I was," I said gently. "Now I'm just responsible for myself." The line went quiet. Then she sighed. That heavy, disappointed sigh that mothers use when they want you to feel guilty without saying so. I let the silence sit. For once, I didn't rush to fill it. That weekend, the dominoes began to fall. Brian texted me at 9 p.m. Saturday. "Yo, did you cancel the insurance? They're saying I'm not covered." "Yes," I replied. "You'll need to renew it under your own name." The renewal date was today. He sent back a long message filled with disbelief. "You could have at least warned me. What am I supposed to do?" "I just did," I wrote. Then Sunday came, and with it, Emily. She called me, voice sharp. "What the hell, Hannah? The car insurance company says I'm not on your plan anymore. What's going on?" I kept my tone calm. "I removed all secondary accounts. I sent you a letter explaining it." "A letter? Are you serious?" she snapped. "You can't just do that. We have kids, Hannah." "I know," I said quietly. "And it's time you and Ryan handle things yourselves." She started crying then, that familiar waver in her voice that used to break me down. "After everything I've been through, you're doing this now? Just because you're mad about Thanksgiving?" I closed my eyes, inhaled slowly. This isn't about Thanksgiving, Emily. It's about 10 years of me taking care of everyone and being punished the first time I said no. Her sobs turned to anger. You're being cruel. You think money makes you better than us? No, I said. I think boundaries make me sane. Then I hung up. For a long moment, I just stood there in my kitchen, phone still in hand, the silence ringing in my ears. I expected guilt to follow, that familiar weight that used to crush me after every confrontation. But it didn't come. What I felt instead was relief. Over the next week, the fallout spread. My father called to mediate. My mother texted paragraphs about family loyalty. Brian complained on social media about selfish people forgetting their roots, and Emily left me 15 missed calls in one day. I didn't answer any of them, but I wasn't hiding. I was watching. Watching how quickly love turned conditional when money was removed from the equation. Watching how people who depended on me for years suddenly spoke of me as if I'd betrayed them. It was fascinating, in a sad kind of way. You learn a lot about relationships when you stop paying for them. The calm revenge wasn't about taking anything away. It was about revealing what had already been true all along, that I had been the quiet backbone of a family that never realized I had one. And as the days passed, I felt something in me healing. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, like sunlight thawing something frozen. For the first time in years, my money stayed where I left it. My evenings were quiet. My thoughts were mine. They could call it cruelty. I called it clarity. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning, because the real confrontation hadn't happened yet. That would come soon, when Thanksgiving arrived, and the people who banned me would finally realize what my absence truly cost them. Thanksgiving morning came with the kind of quiet that doesn't feel festive at all. No phone calls, no messages, no group chat buzzing about who was bringing what. For the first time in years, my phone was still. Usually by 7 a.m, I'd already be helping my mom coordinate the oven schedule or picking up last-minute ingredients. Someone would have inevitably forgotten ice or butter, and I'd be the one to drive out and fix it. But this year, there was nothing for me to fix. I brewed my coffee and looked out the kitchen window. The world outside looked the same. Gold leaves scattered on the ground, gray clouds above, the smell of autumn thick in the air. But inside me, everything was different. I felt steady. Detached, maybe, but not sad. My plan wasn't revenge in the dramatic sense. I wasn't plotting some grand spectacle or waiting for anyone to beg. My revenge was simpler, quieter. I wanted reality to speak for me. I wanted them to feel what life looked like when the quiet fixer stopped fixing. At around 10, my mother called. The screen lit up with her name, and for a moment I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. Hello, Mom. Her voice came through tight and rushed. Hannah, are you really not coming today? I wasn't invited, I said softly. Oh, don't start that. You know what I meant. Emily's still upset, but it's Thanksgiving. You could just come for a little while. Forget about all that. I took a breath. You banned me until I apologized. I'm just respecting that. She exhaled sharply. You're being stubborn. It's family, Hannah. Family forgives. I smiled faintly to myself. I've been forgiving for years, Mom. That's the only reason they got this far. There was a pause. Then she said, Your father's trying to cook the turkey this year, and it's not going well. I could hear pots clanging in the background, muffled voices, kids yelling. I'm sure it'll be fine, I said, though we both knew it wouldn't. She hesitated. The bills came due this week. The internet's off at your brother's, and your father couldn't refill his prescription. We've been trying to reach you. I saw the calls, I said. I figured you'd manage it. Her tone shifted, pleading now. You've always been the responsible one. Can't you just help for now? We'll figure it out later. That phrase, for now, had been the leash around my neck for a decade. I said quietly, Mom, for now has been 10 years. She didn't reply. The silence stretched. Then she whispered, "You've changed." "I've stopped pretending I'm okay with things I'm not," I said. "That's not change. That's honesty." After we hung up, I sat for a while, hands wrapped around my coffee cup, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. There was no joy in it, but there was peace. Around noon, I went for a walk. The air was crisp, the streets almost empty. Every house I passed seemed to hold some small gathering. Laughter, clinking plates, the smell of roasting turkey. It should have made me feel lonely, but it didn't. It made me feel like I was walking back to myself. I stopped by a small diner that stayed open on holidays. The waitress recognized me. "I came there sometimes to write or read," she smiled. "No family dinner?" "Not this year," I said. She nodded like she understood. "Sometimes that's a good thing." I ate quietly, watching people come and go. Some were alone like me. Some were couples escaping their families. It struck me how many different kinds of peace exist, not all of them noisy or full of people. When I got home, my phone had 15 missed calls. 10 from Emily, 3 from my brother, 2 from my mother, and 1 voicemail from my father. I hesitated before playing it. His voice came through, weary but steady. "Hannah, it's Dad. Things are a bit of a mess here. The power went out for a while. Brian forgot to pay the bill. We're trying to figure it out. I know you're upset and I can't blame you. Just call your mother when you can, okay?" I replayed that message twice. Not because of what he said, but because it was the first time in years he didn't ask for help directly. There was no manipulation, no guilt, just tired honesty. I didn't call back that night. Instead, I spent the evening reading, the binder sitting quietly on the coffee table beside me. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just wanted to see what happened when I didn't intervene. The next morning, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Emily standing there, her eyes red and puffy, holding a half-eaten pie box. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside silently. She walked in, setting the pie on the counter like an offering. "I don't know what's going on with you," she said finally. "Everyone's mad, Mom's crying, Dad's sick, Brian's freaking out. You're just sitting here like nothing's wrong." I stayed calm. "I've spent years fixing what's wrong. I think it's fair to sit for once." She crossed her arms, eyes glistening with frustration. "You can't just cut people off, Hannah. We're family." "I didn't cut anyone off," I said evenly. "I cut the money off. You're still free to talk to me, visit me, love me, just not to depend on me." Her voice broke. "You're punishing everyone because of me." I looked at her carefully. "No, I'm teaching everyone because of me." She looked confused. "What does that even mean?" "It means I taught all of you how to lean on me until you forgot how to stand. I built a system where I gave and you took, and now that system's gone. You're angry not because you're hurt, but because you finally have to carry your own weight." Her lip trembled. "You sound like a stranger." I sighed softly. "No, Emily, I finally sound like me." For a long time she said nothing. She looked around my apartment, tidy, quiet, unbothered. "Mom says you're holding grudges, that you're doing this to get back at us." I shook my head. "No, I'm just done mistaking self-sacrifice for love." She sat down, visibly deflating. "I can't pay for daycare next week," she admitted. "Ryan's still waiting on a paycheck and the bills." I interrupted gently. "You'll figure it out. You always do when I'm not around." Her eyes flashed. "That's cruel." "No," I said softly. "That's confidence." She started crying again, the tears genuine this time. "You don't understand how hard it is for us." I walked to the kitchen, poured her a glass of water, and set it in front of her. "You're right. I don't understand, because every time it got hard for you, I made it easier. I thought I was helping, but I was only teaching you that I'd always clean up your mess. That's not love either." She didn't argue. She just sat there crying quietly, shoulders trembling. For the first time, I didn't comfort her. I let her feel it. After a while, she wiped her eyes and stood up. "Mom said you kept a binder. Is that true?" I glanced toward the table. "Yes." She said you're keeping track like you're some kind of accountant. I smiled faintly. I am an accountant. She gave a small, humorless laugh. You really wrote everything down? Yes, I said. Every dollar. Every date. Every time I helped. She hesitated, then whispered, Can I see it? I thought about it. Then I nodded. She sat down again as I brought the binder over. When I placed it in front of her, she opened it cautiously, like it might burn her. The first few pages were neat columns of numbers, notes scribbled in margins. Her name appeared often, highlighted in blue ink. Her eyes widened as she flipped through page after page. You kept all this? She murmured. I had to, I said quietly. For my own sanity. Otherwise, I'd start believing the story you all tell, that I'm cold or selfish when I say no. She flipped another page and stopped. There was a note written in my handwriting. Emily, daycare, Benny 50, April, June. She promised to pay back later. Her hand trembled slightly as she traced the line. I did promise, she whispered. I know, I said gently. You just never did. None of you did, because I never made you. She looked up, tears pooling in her eyes. You really hate us that much? I shook my head slowly. I don't hate you. I love you enough to stop letting you use me. She didn't have a response for that. After a long silence, she stood up, eyes red, clutching her bag. Mom's going to lose it when she finds out you showed me this. I'm sure she will, I said calmly. But maybe she needs to see it too. When she left, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt still. Later that night, I got a text from my father. Your mother's upset. Emily showed her the binder. She wants to talk. Can you come by tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I replied, Yes, it's time. As I set my phone down, I realized something. The revenge wasn't just in the act of cutting them off. It was in the truth finally standing on its own, no longer buried under guilt or obligation. They could call it cold, cruel, dramatic. I didn't care. For once, my life wasn't defined by their comfort. That night, I slept deeply. No alarms, no anxious thoughts, just quiet. Tomorrow would be the confrontation I'd spent a decade avoiding. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had never realized how quiet my phone could be when no one wanted to talk to me, only to what I provided. For 3 days after I cut off the accounts, the silence was refreshing. No messages about overdue fees, no late-night calls asking for a little help until Friday. I almost believed that maybe they'd figured something out, that perhaps this whole exercise would pass quietly, and they'd all adjust. But peace is fragile. By the 4th day, the silence cracked. It started with my cousin Chloe, the one I was supposed to apologize to. She texted, Hey, weird question. Did you maybe change the Netflix password? It's not working. I stared at the screen for a full minute. That was the hill she wanted to start with. Netflix. Not the credit cards, not the phone plans, not even the health insurance her parents were on. Just Netflix. I typed back, Yeah, I canceled it. She sent an emoji, a shocked face. Then, Why though? We all use it. I didn't respond. I was done explaining myself for simple things. An hour later, my brother Ethan called. He never used his words carefully. What the hell, Hannah? My card got declined at the gas station. I was stranded for half an hour. What's going on? His tone was sharp, defensive, the same one he'd used our whole lives whenever he wanted to hide the fact that he was scared. I took a breath. I turned off the family credit accounts. They're in my name. You should have had your own by now. There was a pause, long, quiet, like he was trying to understand a language he'd never heard before. Then came the explosion. What do you mean you turned them off? You can't just do that. That's not fair! You said you'd help until I got back on my feet. That was 3 years ago, Ethan, I said softly. You've been getting back on your feet longer than most people stand. He hung up. I sat there for a while, staring at my hands, remembering all the times I'd helped him. Rent, car repairs, medical bills, his impulsive vacation to Mexico, all quietly paid off because he couldn't catch a break. And somehow, when the help stopped, I was suddenly the villain. That night, I poured a cup of tea and opened the thick binder, the one that had started all of this. My proof, as I called it. Inside were every transaction, every note, every receipt. I had listed out every single instance I had bailed someone out, from small things like groceries to massive expenses like college fees for my niece. Each page felt like a wound I had kept open out of guilt. I wasn't angry as I looked at it. Not anymore. I was tired. Tired of playing savior in a family that didn't even say thank you. By the 5th day, the calls had multiplied. My aunt left voicemails saying things like, "You could have given us a heads up," and "The kids' health insurance isn't going through, Hannah. This isn't a joke." Then came my mother, her voice smaller, uncertain. "Hannah, honey, everyone's in chaos right now. Can you just fix it for now and we'll talk later?" I wanted to cry when I heard her voice, because part of me still wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from the fallout. But I remembered her words from that night. "You're banned from Thanksgiving until you apologize." She'd said it calmly, but it had burned deep. I wasn't banned for doing something wrong. I was banned because I refused to be blamed for something I didn't do. That's when I realized I had always been allowed in, as long as I was convenient. The moment I wasn't, I was disposable, so I didn't fix it. I let the discomfort grow. By the weekend, Ethan showed up at my door. He didn't knock gently. It was the kind of knock that demanded entry. I opened the door anyway. He looked worn out, hair messy, eyes bloodshot. "Are you happy now?" he said, stepping inside without permission. "Mom's crying. Aunt Carol's freaking out. Chloe can't even pay her tuition this month. You just cut everyone off, like some kind of psycho." "I'm not a psycho," I said quietly. "I'm just done being your ATM." He scoffed. "You're unbelievable. All because you couldn't say sorry to Chloe? You're ruining Thanksgiving for everyone." That's when I finally felt something snap. Not anger, but resolve. This isn't about Thanksgiving, Ethan. This is about every time you all treated me like an afterthought. I was the backup plan, the emergency fund, the invisible one who made sure things didn't fall apart. And you still made me the problem. He looked stunned, maybe because I was calm, too calm. My tone didn't match the chaos he expected. I was done yelling. "You think we owe you something?" he said bitterly. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady. "Respect, gratitude, maybe just once. Acknowledgement." He left without another word. That night I slept deeply for the first time in months. No guilt, no noise, no endless list of other people's problems, just silence. But the next morning, I woke up to 25 missed calls. They came from everyone. Mom, Aunt Carol, even my Uncle Mark, who hadn't spoken to me in years. I scrolled through the messages, desperation layered with indignation. "You've gone too far, Hannah. You're punishing us all for nothing. We need to talk." And yet, not one of them said, "I'm sorry." Not one said, "We took advantage of you." So I decided to go a step further. I opened my laptop and went through every auto-pay setup, insurance, utilities, car payments, streaming services, even the grocery memberships I'd quietly been covering for my mother and aunt. I printed the confirmation of each cancellation, filed it neatly into my binder, and wrote on the last page in pen, "Closed." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about release. Later that week, I drove to my mother's house. She lived 2 hours away, and I made the drive in silence, letting the hum of the highway settle my thoughts. When I arrived, she was on the porch, arms crossed, eyes weary. "Hannah," she said softly, "I don't understand why you're doing this." I sat beside her, the wood of the porch creaking under us. "Because, Mom, no one else understands what I've been doing all these years." "You could have just talked to us," she said. "I tried. I whispered. But you only heard me when the money stopped. She looked down, fingers twisting her wedding ring. You've changed. I've grown up, I said. We sat in silence for a long time, watching the sun dip below the trees. For once, she didn't try to fill the quiet with small talk. She didn't ask for anything. She just sat, maybe realizing finally how heavy I'd been carrying everything. As I drove home, I thought about Thanksgiving. The table, the laughter, the subtle digs, the unspoken debts. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for not being part of it. They could have their dinner without me. I had finally learned how to feed myself peace. Still, I knew this wasn't the end. People who depend on you never accept change easily. They'd come back, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of desperation. But this time, I was ready. And when they did, I'd have my binder ready, not as proof of revenge, but as a mirror showing them the truth they'd ignored for years. The truth that Hannah Cole was not their safety net anymore. Thanksgiving morning used to start with the smell of butter and cinnamon. For years, I would wake up before everyone else, head to the kitchen, and start preparing pies while the house was still quiet. It had been my ritual since I was 21, the one constant in a family full of noise and demands. This year, the kitchen was silent. There was no reason to wake early, no reason to drive 2 hours to a house where I was no longer welcome. The calendar still said Thanksgiving dinner, 5 p.m., but I left it there, like a scar I had stopped touching. I made coffee instead. The air outside was cold, the kind that made the windows fog. My phone buzzed a few times that morning. Messages from coworkers wishing happy holidays. A discount alert from a store I didn't care about. And one group text from my family that I didn't open. I knew what it was. Probably photos of food, forced smiles, captions like, family first. But not one of them had called to ask how I was. And honestly, that was fine. Around noon, I decided to go for a walk. The park near my apartment was nearly empty. A few families picnicked by the lake, children chasing each other with plastic plates in hand. I watched them, quietly amused, thinking about how much effort goes into pretending things are fine during holidays. As I walked, I thought about what peace really felt like. Not the fake kind that comes from keeping everyone else comfortable, but the kind that comes from knowing you owe no one an apology for your own boundaries. It was strange, but freeing. Every breath I took felt like I was reclaiming space that had belonged to others for too long. By late afternoon, I was home again, curled up on the couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. That's when the knock came. 3 slow knocks, familiar, hesitant. I opened the door expecting Ethan or maybe my Aunt Carol, but it was my mother. She looked older than I remembered, her coat too light for the cold, her face tired but soft. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded. She stepped inside, looking around as if she hadn't been there before. I hadn't invited her since the night of the argument. "You're missing dinner," she said quietly. "No," I replied, setting her coat on the hook. "I'm skipping it," she gave a small, sad smile. "It's not the same without you." "It's exactly the same," I said. "You just have to notice what's missing." She didn't argue. Instead, she sat down at the table, the same one I'd used to pay their bills, organize paperwork, and quietly fund their lives. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she sighed. "Everyone's upset." "I know. They don't understand why you're doing this." "I know that too." She looked at me, searching my face for something. Maybe the old version of me who would have softened by now. "Hannah, you were always the strong one. You took care of everyone. And no one took care of me," I said. She flinched, as if I'd said something cruel. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. For once, silence did the work. "I came here," she continued, "because I think you need to tell them what you told me that day. About the binder, the expenses. They won't believe it otherwise. I walked to the bookshelf and pulled it out. The thick binder that had started as documentation and turned into liberation. I placed it on the table between us. She opened it slowly, flipping through pages of printouts, bank statements, receipts. Her fingers paused at every highlighted line, every rent payment, medical bill, car repair. "I didn't realize," she whispered. "You've done all this?" "For years," I said, and they never noticed. Or maybe they did, but it was easier not to. Her eyes filled with tears. "Hannah, you should have said something." "I did," I said gently. "You all just didn't want to hear it." She nodded slowly, as if finally understanding that silence doesn't mean peace. It means exhaustion. "I want to show them this," she said. "Tonight." "Then do it," I said. "But don't go there expecting me to be the villain." She reached for my hand, squeezed it lightly. "You're not." After she left, I sat at the table staring at the binder. For a second, I wondered if I should have gone with her, not to make peace, but to close the loop. To see their faces when they realized what they'd lost. And maybe that was selfish, but closure often is. So I grabbed my keys and followed. By the time I reached my aunt's house, the driveway was full. The laughter spilling from inside sounded forced, too loud, too careful. I parked on the street, sat there for a minute, then stepped out. When I walked in, conversations froze. Forks paused midair, eyes turned. It felt like walking into a courtroom. "Hannah," my aunt said slowly. "You decided to come?" "I'm not staying," I said. "I just came to drop something off." I placed the binder on the counter, opened it, and turned it toward them. "This," I said, "is everything I've done for this family for the past 15 years. They stared. Chloe, the cousin I was supposed to apologize to, crossed her arms. "This is about money, really?" "No," I said softly. "This is about how you treated the person who kept this family afloat. You banned me from Thanksgiving because I wouldn't say sorry, but none of you ever said thank you." My aunt spoke up, defensive. "You helped because you wanted to, Hannah. No one forced you." "You're right," I said. "I did it because I loved you, but love isn't supposed to be one-sided." Ethan muttered something under his breath. I think it was drama queen. I ignored it. Every phone bill, every tuition payment, every insurance renewal, I handled it. Quietly. You all built your lives on that, and you never noticed. Until it stopped. For a long time, no one spoke. The room was thick with a kind of discomfort that words couldn't clear. Then my mother, bless her, spoke. "She's right," she said. "We've all used her. Every one of us." Her voice trembled, but it was enough. The dam broke. My aunt started to cry. Chloe looked small for once, not smug. Ethan just stared at the floor. It wasn't about shame. It was about realization. That the quiet one they'd overlooked had quietly held everything together. I didn't gloat. I didn't yell. I just let them sit with the truth. That was the real revenge. Not destruction, but reflection. After a while, I closed the binder and said, "You don't owe me anything, but you do owe yourselves honesty. Figure out what kind of family you want to be without a safety net." Then I walked out. The air outside was cold and clean, and as I stepped into it, I felt lighter than I ever had before. The door closed behind me, muffling the noise, sealing away years of quiet resentment. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking away from my family. I was walking toward myself. That night, I made a small dinner, roasted vegetables and a slice of pie I'd baked just for me. I ate in silence, no chaos, no guilt, just peace. My phone buzzed once more before midnight. It was a message from my mother. "We all read the binder. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a while, then typed back, "Thank you. That's all I needed." As I set my phone down, I realized something simple but powerful. Forgiveness doesn't always mean letting people back in. Sometimes it means letting yourself move on without bitterness. I looked out the window. The city lights shimmered faintly, distant but steady. That's what I wanted my life to be from now on. Steady, self-made, untangled from expectations. The binder sat on the table beside me, closed. I didn't need it anymore. I had kept it as proof of my worth, but now I understood. My worth didn't need proof. I whispered softly to myself, "Happy Thanksgiving, Hannah." And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. If you enjoyed hearing my story, take a second to like this video. It really helps more people find these calm revenge stories. And if you'd like to hear more true-to-life stories about standing up quietly, without anger or drama, make sure to subscribe to my Calm Revenge. Because sometimes, the calmest revenge is simply taking back your peace.